Hey everyone, welcome back to Talking Balls. Today's episode is a bit of a special one. For the first time, I'm not going to be talking about football events on the pitch or stuff on the pitch regarding any particular club or nation. As you can see, the title is Resuscitating Football. So, that should give you a bit of an insight into what I'm about to discuss, which is events over the past week, um, relating to FIFA and all the other stuff going on. But before we commence, guys, as always, please give us a like and a follow on Spotify. Give us a like and subscribe on YouTube as well. I'll include links in the show notes. And as always, I would appreciate comments, and I will do my best to reply to everyone. And once they start coming through, guys. And of course, if you want to get in touch personally, email address is dirtyan@gmail.com. That's DARETOYAN@gmail.com. I would also include that in show notes. And with that done, let's get into the episode. Uh, where do I even start? I mean, can tell from my mood just what I think of the whole thing, or from my voice anyway, what my mood is around this whole thing. Football's been in a bit of a downward spiral for the last few years. We've seen transfer fees become exorbitant, money and power become the name of the game, really. Starting off with what starting off with COVID and the whole thing where fans went in stadiums and you saw the effects of that on clubs. And then coming out of COVID with the Super League. Was that before COVID? No, coming out of COVID with the Super League and the attempted introduction of an elite European competition for certain clubs, certain top clubs, which basically was an attempt to prevent accountability on that part. And it's basically just been a whole deviation from the game that started out in the 1800s, created in the spirit of community and joy, and it's been destroyed by a few um, miscreants, let's call them that, all in the pursuit of profit. And the last week has been almost the pinnacle of this whole fiasco. So let's just break it down day by day. Literally 1 week ago, Tuesday, well, it wasn't, we didn't actually, there was no actual proposal yet. The Financial Times and the Times, which somehow I didn't realize were two different publications, both released details of a proposal being planned by FIFA called the FIFA Forward Enterprise. And basically, what that means was FIFA was proposing a commercial venture or a separate entity outside FIFA that would run FIFA's activities. So this separate entity would be in charge of running the World Cup, providing World Cup, Club World Cup, all of that. And basically, the proposal was to be sent to all 211 football associations, and they were given everyone would have been given until September 19th to review it and respond to the proposal. Of course, in it was an incentive that if they were to accept, about 30 million pounds would be available to each association, 15 million pounds of which would be available immediately, 10 or 15 million pounds available immediately. And as we've seen over the last year or two, the leading investor on the deal is a guy called Joshua Kushner. If that sounds familiar to you, it's because this is the brother of Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law. So before getting into the rest of it, immediately on surface it tells you the shady dealings involved in putting this forward. Before I get into this, the aim is just Kushner is leading the private investors into this separate enterprise, and the plan was the enterprise will basically the investment will be 20% of the total value of the enterprise. They were looking for about £3 billion. therefore valuing the enterprise at £15 billion. Um, I'll get into some numbers. FIFA right now hold estimates of at least £1.5 billion. Um, some estimates have it as high as £3.5 billion. Reason this is in reserves is FIFA is by Swiss law a non-profit organization, so any profits has to be held in reserve for association members. FIFA is also coming off the most successful cycle in its history. So cycles are done in 4 years, every 4 years, culminating in the World Cup. And this was the highest revenue generating World Cup of all time. I think it's currently estimated to have generated over £11 billion for FIFA. So immediately you can see where the discrepancies are arising, because why would an organization with £1 to £3 billion of reserves be looking for private investment with certain individuals, while the non-profit organization with reserves be looking for individuals to invest further? Um, Basically, it's not clear who was meant to benefit. It says associations would get access to, like I said, £30 million pool, but there's no actual breakdown of who is going to receive the rest of the money or why it's needed when FIFA can put on it, can put on the World Cup, Club World Cup, using its own money anyway. So, I mean, we can just break. I think it's best if we just move into the reactions. I mean, as soon as this came out, um, the UEFA, the European competition overlord, or the group of European football associations, immediately just called it out as it is, accused FIFA of crossing the line, saying football wasn't FIFA's to sell. FIFA, of course, kind of pushed back and said no one was selling football. By Thursday, UEFA, again, all 55 members unilaterally agreed they will boycott the World Cup until this plan is permanently cancelled and there is assurances of no further attempts to seek private investment in football. Thursday evening, CONCACAF, which is North and Central American Football Federation, also announced its 41 members were unilaterally rejecting the proposal. By Friday morning, AFC, so the Asian Football Confederation, came out and said they were backing UEFA and CONCACAF, so they weren't going to side with the deal either. And basically what's happened is the fallout has just continued with a senior advisor to Infantino, called Carlos Cordero, resigned. That was on Friday morning as well. This one is quite important, in my opinion, because this is an ex-Goldman Sachs banker who is a senior advisor to Infantino, like I said, on FIFA's council. If an American ex-banker is coming out and calling something a bad deal, or calling you out for seeking investment, does not say a lot more about your deal and possibly corruption? I don't know. But yeah, basically since then, a lot of other countries and a lot of other countries have come out opposing it. There are now calls for Infantino to step down. I mean, he was expected to be re-elected in elections in March next year. But at the moment, there's now countries calling for him to step down, countries are withdrawing the support for him. Basically, his whole position is untenable. Reason I'm bringing all of this up is I'm just wondering what happened to the soul of football. Um, or rather, how did we get here? I mean, how did we get to the point where the FIFA president is cozying up to the president of the United States, creating brand new awards like the FIFA Peace Prize to give him, buddying up, bringing him out for trophy presentations on the podium or on the stands with the players, like Spanish World Cup, for example. If you look at it, the Spanish FA had to edit Donald Trump out of the pictures of them celebrating that World Cup win. Why is he there in first place? How have we gotten to this point where a FIFA president is so comfortable cozying up to corrupt officials to the point where he is unilaterally coming up with decisions for investment in a global sport that is not ruled or controlled by any one person. Um, it's. I mean, people say it's the soul. We're fighting for the soul of football, but it goes beyond that. We're just fighting for the soul of humanity at this point. Because when do we get to the point where it is just all too much? At what point do we stop ourselves and go, the pursuit of money, the pursuit of power has overtaken everything else? I mean, we're in an economy where, or rather, we're in a place where I've got to pay a subscription to be able to use Microsoft Office. I don't know if how much people remember, but what 5, 10 years ago, you get a new laptop, you get a computer, Microsoft Suite comes with it, and you can use it for free. It's perfectly fine. And then it switched to a point where you had to pay for OneDrive, the online thing, and now you have to pay just to use the app itself. We're in an age where you can't own music or TV. You've got to pay subscriptions for everything. And then on sites like Amazon Prime, you've got to pay to watch or to rent movies, even though you're already paying for the subscription. Which I mean, I was looking at some stuff last night, and this is going to sound batshit insane, but 7 years ago, average ticket for a Premier League game was 30 something pounds. Today it stands at £74. That's 106% increase over 7 years. Cumulative inflation in that period as well is about 30 something percent. I mean, ticket jersey prices are up about 40% as well in the same period, averaging now close to averaging £90 for a jersey, for a single adult jersey. Um, I mean, even back to the Super League, the fact that teams have the goal to even make such a proposal in the first place. The fact that some owners are so removed from football and from the fans that it was a good idea in their heads to create an exclusive competition for just themselves and to ignore every other club on the continent and all the fans on the continent just for the sake of making money. Where did we get to this point where this is allowed? I mean, the UK is not producing, the UK has appointed a new football regulator. If if I'm the football regulator, first thing I'm doing is I'm pursuing the Bundesliga model. Here's the Bundesliga model. Each club must have they operate a 50+1 ownership system. So each club must be owned at least rather club members must own at least 50% of each club's voting rights, plus one extra vote, So in essence, club members, i.e., fans, like everyday fans like you and I, who pay to become members, who pay membership fees, and that gets us access to buying tickets for games. Like I had to buy a membership fee for Manchester United, buying a ticket last night. So people like me, people like all of us, we would own at least 50% of the voting rights plus an extra vote, meaning that at every point, we are the majority voters in the club. We are the major, so we decide, or we have final say on what happens at the club. And this, like I said, it puts ownership, or rather, it puts decision making in the hands of fans. And I mean, if some people might say, well, Bundesliga, what about the financial side of things, or what is the incentive there? I will point out that last season, average attendance in Premier League and Bundesliga were at parity, so 41,500 each. But if you look further down at the leagues further down, the Championship, the UK's second league, had 22,000 supporters at each game. So the average. And two Bundesliga, the German second league, this was 28,500. So right off the bat, you've got the second league of Bundesliga, second league of Germany, ranking in top 15 most supported leagues worldwide in terms of um, stadium stadium viewers. Um, Bundesliga tickets last season again averaged £27. In the UK, like I already said, it was just shy of £80. I mean, that's almost triple the price of a Bundesliga game. And I don't know if anyone here follows Bundesliga, but the games are always great. There's always, like, I don't think I've ever watched a Bundesliga nil-nil before. There's always entertainment. There's always something going on, and the fans are passionate. There's desire, and it shows you what happens when there's a connection between the club and the fans. You can never accuse any Bundesliga game of being low on atmosphere or anything. Now, again, financial resources, like, sure, owners may not be as incentivized if that was the system, but then you have to consider TV money in Premier League vastly outstrips the TV money in any other league in the world. Like, TV money in Premier League, I'm pretty sure is, you're looking at combined figures for Ligue 1, La Liga, Serie A, just to get TV money. Sorry, Premier League TV money. And it just baffles me again. Why can't we do this? Like, we could literally create a supercharged ownership version of Bundesliga where teams are in essence controlled by the fans. You don't get all these stupid decisions of teams hiking up games and using dynamic pricing to go watch. You don't get £90 tickets to go watch Burnley versus West Brom in pandemic. You don't get all these bafflingly stupid decisions. You give the game back to the fans. We would be the ones controlling things, and at the end of the day, everyone benefits, because you can't accuse the Bundesliga of, one, not being entertaining. Two, if you've got fan engagement, if you've got stadiums being filled out on the regular, you will make money. It is revenue coming in, plus the TV revenue. It all adds up. Like, it's great. The Premier League is already a legacy league. Like, people come to watch games because it is the Premier League. So why not pursue this system? Why not? And if you do that further down the pyramid as well, we've not spoken on here on this podcast about it, but we've seen clubs like Bury, Portsmouth going into administration in recent years. You set up this system where, get rid of all this SCR squad cost ratio nonsense, because if fans are in charge, you don't have to worry as much about it, because you can count on a constant, because that constant engagement is there. There will be revenue coming in regularly, consistently. Like, it's almost a no-brainer. But of course, this decision isn't going to get me, because you're going to be asking a lot of these billionaire owners. In fact, I'm going to call them a different name. You're going to have money grabbing wranglers, bankers, and private equity wankers who will refuse to do this, because they're going to see that pockets maybe not getting as filled up as they would like it to be. And I mean, look at the Glazers, for example. They came into this, they took over Manchester United. They saddled the club with £1 billion of debt to fund the acquisition of Manchester United. First off, the idea that you can buy a company with debt and give that company all the debt you've used to buy it is just incredibly. I'm going to stop, because I don't want to use the word I want to use. But the fact you can do that should be criminal. Like, what are we doing here? And to this day, the debt has not gone down. United pays hundreds of millions of pounds in interest on that debt that's now 20 years old, 20 plus years old, and they've not written it down. They sold a fraction of the club by listing on the stock exchange, sold a fraction to Jim Ratcliffe. They've taken dividends out on the regular. They use company jets to travel to games when they decide to come around, and yet they're still in charge of the club. I mean, Old Trafford fell into such a state of disrepair. I mean, we all remember the Old Trafford waterfall. How can, under the Bundesliga system, none of this ever happens? Because, one, can't really saddle the club with that much debt. Because, again, ownership club member ownership, we just won't let it happen. And even if it were to happen, again, dividends being drawn out, all of that, none of it will happen. The money will go towards servicing the debt. More importantly, the club will be a lot more financially viable at the point where it's not firing 800 people in a 16-month period. And then conversely, right after spending 90 million pounds on 30 million pound players and the it just pisses me off that football is that, I mean, I've gone so far away from Infantino and FIFA now, but I'll come back to it. It pisses me off that football is at this stage. It pisses me off that we've got to have continental organizations and countries coming out to speak against a dictatorship. What is in essence a dictatorship? A dictatorship. The fact he had the goal to even make this plan, the fact he devised this plan and members of FIFA's council or general council were not aware of it. The fact the Times and Financial Times had to leak this information out less than 2 months from the deadline because he hadn't even made the proposal to countries yet. He was going to force a pressured decision to be made. The fact he is still president 1 week later. Why are we not taking control of our sport? Why are we taking back control of our sport? Why are we letting this guy continue? Why are we letting all of this stuff happen? I mean, and there's one more thing I want to point out. There's one company I want to point out in all this. JP Morgan. JP Morgan. They were the advisors on this deal. They were the ones trying to find investors for this deal. They were consulting on it. They were also the same company who advised and consulted with a lot of the Super League clubs. They were involved in formation of that idea as well. JP Morgan. They aren't getting enough attention either because that's Jamie Dimon. I respect him as a CEO because everything he's done for that bank since the financial crisis and the work he's done in terms of making sure they cater to the customers. Incredible. But this is our second time in 6 years they've been involved in a decision to kill football. They've been consulting on a decision to kill football. Something needs to be done somewhere. Someone needs to lose a job. Because this cannot, someone else, in addition to Infantino, someone needs to lose a job at JP Morgan, or several people, or a team, or a whole section or sector department. They need to be out of jobs. Because this is the second time they're trying to ruin our sport. And the fact that name isn't doing the rounds among fans as a way, as football needs to change. Football needs to change. I mean, I'm not necessarily the best person to come up with ideas, but even looking at the Premier League, again, Bundesliga ownership model put it in place. I was even thinking about ways to make it fairer, like ways to make European leagues fairer. For example, Champions League. Why can Premier League have 6 teams in there? That makes no sense. You bring back the olden day cap of no more than 4 teams per country. Make it so that the winner of the Champions League and Europa League next year can automatically qualify into the Champions League, but with a 4-team cap. Again, no country should have more than 4 teams in the Champions League. Winner of the Europa League goes into winner of the Conference League goes into the Europa League. For the Premier League, we could do it. We can make a system of top 4 Premier League, of course. Champions League, depending on who wins Europa League or Champions League the year before. As you go down, 5, 6, 7. No more than 3 teams from each country in the Europa League as well, and no more than 2 teams from any country, from each country in the Conference League. And you find a way to balance it out. And in Premier League, you could have a rule where Carabao Cup is strictly any country in European competition cannot play. Any team in European competition cannot participate in the Carabao Cup. And you have the Carabao Cup winner getting automatic entry into the Conference League for the next year. You have the FA Cup winner automatic entry into the Europa League for next year. You can do that, and suddenly you start to create a lot more parity amongst teams because you're guaranteeing that every season there's one team who wasn't in Europe the year before now now in Europe in the Conference League via Carabao Cup. You're also guaranteeing that teams in Europe aren't overloaded with games because yeah, fine, you could say Carabao Cup may not add that many games to the calendar, but the timing of it between between September, no, yeah, September and February means that that's when European League group stages are, the European League group phases. That's also when you have the winter window, the December, January period where teams are playing every 3, 4 days. You wipe those games out for teams in Europe. It frees up that calendar a little bit more. And of course, teams not in Europe still get to play those games. It brings a lot more parity to the league. You're ensuring that there's a new team in Europe every year, getting access to that to revenue from playing in Europe, either directly from competition or extra gate receipts. There's so many solutions that could be done, that could be put in place. But of course, you need 14 or 20 Premier League clubs to agree to it. And of course, like we said, you got all these private equity owners, you got all these proper capitalists who just refuse to do anything that would hit that bottom line. So as fans, let's take our sport back. If it needs to be a situation of we stop going to games at all, we let the stadiums go empty like they did in COVID, and let the owners watching games on TV hear the echoes. Let's do it. Let's force a decision. Let's force their hands. We run this sport. We own this sport. And as I speak, Gianni Infantino's on thin ice. Planet is only getting warmer. So let's hope the next guy or next woman or whoever comes in next actually loves football, is a fan of football, and can actually implement changes for the good of this sport. Because this sport is dying and we need to keep it alive for the love of the game. Thank you guys for listening. See you next week.